Bonjour. Good morning, all, and thank you for being here, and for those of you watching via webcast. So I'm here today to release my annual report on the work of my office over the past fiscal year. This report demonstrates the many ways in which we, as an independent, nonpartisan oversight office, enhance governance by promoting transparency, accountability, and fairness. And it illustrates the benefit of our work to the people and the institutions of Ontario. This report provides many examples of what an impartial office like ours can do to make public services better. Ce rapport montre les nombreuses façons dont nous aidons les gens et les institutions de notre province. Il illustre la valeur d'une surveillance indépendante et souligne ce qu'un bureau impartial comme le nôtre peut faire pour améliorer les services publics. Now, of course, I'm well aware that in just 2 days there will be a swearing in of Ontario's new government following the election earlier this month. But we're also less than 4 months away from local elections across the province, which will undoubtedly see the election of hundreds of new municipal council members and school trustees. I only mention that to reinforce the notion that as an officer of the legislature, I am independent of the government and generally not directly involved in the political process. I report to the people of Ontario through the legislature. My office oversees the administrative branch of government, the bureaucracy, to ensure that citizens receive the service and fair treatment that they are entitled to from their governments. Je pense donc qu'il est important de saisir cette occasion pour parler du rôle que les bureaux indépendants et apolitiques, comme le mien, peuvent jouer malgré les changements politiques. Simply put, the Office of the Ombudsman is here, as we have been since 1975, to ensure ongoing fairness in the policies of those elected and make sure that those are translated into fair administrative action here at Queen's Park and in hundreds of municipalities and school boards. Many of the issues that we have tackled, such as police de-escalation training or the provision of services for adults with severe developmental disabilities, have been receiving attention for more than 20 years. And what we often discover is that the most entrenched issues are problems that public sector bodies are aware of and often would like to fix. They usually stem from rules that are too rigidly applied, procedures that are overly cumbersome, or customer service that is just not up to par. And yes, sometimes it is due to a lack of resources. It often takes someone credible, shining a light on the situation, and making feasible recommendations for corrective action for positive change to occur. So we resolve thousands of complaints every month. Most are dealt with quickly, as our staff help people navigate the bureaucracy and cut through red tape. Some result in proactive, constructive suggestions to help public sector bodies improve their processes and actually ward off future complaints. A few became formal investigations that dig deep into systemic issues. But overwhelmingly, public sector officials have accepted our suggestions and recommendations, and all Ontarians are better for it. Some improvements have been many years in the making, the result of effective oversight complementing the efforts of citizen activism to draw attention to issues. Police de-escalation training, for example, has been recommended for decades by coroner's juries, as well as experts, and families of people killed during interactions with police. Now, following our report, A Matter of Life and Death, it is finally included in legislation and will be part of a new Ontario Police College curriculum. We are also seeing progress on how the province handles inmates who are in solitary confinement, a long-standing, difficult issue that we investigated and proposed solutions for last year. Another issue that citizens have struggled with for years is the complex system of services for people with developmental disabilities, as documented in our 2016 report, Nowhere to Turn. We have seen steady improvement as my recommendations continue to be implemented, and will continue to work with those in the system to ensure that these individuals find adequate placements. We continue to receive complaints from some families in crisis, but stakeholders have told me that they have seen the system improve since our report was published. Oversight of municipalities and school boards is another issue with a long history in our office. In fact, it was raised by the very first Ombudsman. When our mandate was finally expanded to include these areas 2 years ago, they naturally generated thousands of complaints. But today, I'm happy to report that all but a handful of these cases have been informally resolved, and we have seen broad improvements in transparency and accountability at the local level. More and more municipalities have established codes of conduct, integrity commissioners, and local ombudsmen, and many are also recording their closed meetings. All of this is highly encouraged by our office, since local issues are best handled locally. And as always, we are here to step in where local mechanisms fail or can't reach. Comme toujours, nous avons inclus dans ce rapport de nombreuses histoires personnelles qui illustrent la manière dont nous avons aidé des citoyens face à de multiples problèmes, allant des certificats de naissance aux prêts pour les étudiants, en passant par les factures de services publics. Et j'encourage toutes celles et tous ceux qui nous écoutent à les lire pour savoir comment nous pouvons vous aider. Once again, we've included many individual stories, compelling stories, that illustrate how we helped Ontarians with everything from birth certificates to student loans to utility bills. And so I encourage everyone listening to review these stories and learn more about how we can potentially help you. So I'd be happy to take your questions at this time.
Dubé, you mentioned that complaints about universities and colleges are on the rise. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if some of those complaints have to do with protests or free speech issues or visiting speakers, or if it's just a whole swath of different issues.
I think it's a swath of different issues. The most frequent complaints are with regards to academic appeals, marks, and grading of work, and then financing and access to student loans and that kind of thing. So those are the most prevalent issues in the university sphere. We have a good relationship with the network of university ombuds, and so when we do get problems, if there is a local mechanism there, we'll refer them back. And so we're working with those ombuds where they are on the university campuses to help them improve the processes. But we're encouraging all universities to have an ombudsman on site.
Monsieur Dubé, votre rapport est bien différent des autres des dernières années et ça survient alors qu'on va avoir un nouveau gouvernement sermenté ce vendredi. Est-ce que c'est un message pour le gouvernement finalement de dire que votre bureau et les endroits où il peut faire la surveillance, c'est positif? Avez-vous peur d'être vu comme un élément négatif qui est surtout là pour critiquer le gouvernement?
Non, du tout. Je pense que nous sommes là, comme nous sommes là depuis 40 ans maintenant, pour travailler avec n'importe quel gouvernement qui est en place, sauf qu'il faut souligner, c'est ça que j'essaie le message que j'envoie, c'est que c'est pour éduquer le public au fait qu'on ne travaille pas directement avec le gouvernement, l'exécutif, le gouvernement élu. Nous travaillons plutôt avec l'administration. Donc, peu importe le gouvernement qui est en place, nous sommes là pour travailler avec eux, pour donner un feedback sur la façon que les programmes fonctionnent et pour proposer des solutions. Donc, je pense que ce soit un changement du gouvernement au niveau provincial ou municipal, il y a toujours un élément d'éducation et de formation qui est nécessaire. Et donc, nous commençons tout de suite à lancer le message que nous sommes là pour travailler avec n'importe qui.
Your office has completed its field work in the confiscation of a laptop at Niagara Regional Council. Is there anything more you can tell us about that before it comes up?
No, not really. We work confidentially, and until the affected parties and stakeholders have a chance to review that in confidence and confidentially and get back feedback on a preliminary report, we don't comment publicly. But that report will be coming out very soon.
I've covered a lot of ombudsman's press conferences, and I've never seen one like this where you're basically reinforcing the value of what you do. Are you worried that this new government is going to somehow diminish your office, either through cutting funds or
No, as I said in French, I think it's just an opportunity to inform people about what we do. There are a lot of new players in the system that don't necessarily understand what we do. And no, I'm not worried. I didn't hear anybody during the election campaign on a program of less accountability, less transparency, and less fairness. So no, that is not a concern. But I think that there are going to be a lot of new players at the provincial level and at the municipal level very soon. And so not all of them understand the way an ombudsman operates. And so this is really an opportunity to start educating people. And again, it's always about showing the value that we offer to stakeholders. and stakeholders at all levels. And you know, there are some misconceptions out there that we are advocates for complainants or that we take sides, which we don't. And so we're really, you know, the messaging in this report, one of the key messages is that we add value to all stakeholders. And so if we get a complaint, and I tell stakeholders all the time, complaints are good. Public institutions should welcome complaints because it's the best source of feedback. And either we will validate the processes, we'll validate what the department or the municipality has done, or we'll provide some constructive feedback and we'll work with them and make, you know, feasible recommendations. And so the proof is in this report that we've really seen some good movement in the last year. You know, reforms that have been decades in the making, whether it's on police training, or the treatment of prisoners in solitary confinement and isolation, or in the municipal area where there's going to be, I think, less confusion with clearer definitions of what a meeting is, and the implementation of codes of conduct and integrity commissioners that are going to become mandatory next March. So it's, you know, it's basically it's a good news story.
Est-ce que vous aimeriez plus de moyens?
Non, nous avons des moyens adéquats. C'est le seul défi qu'on a, c'est que ça a pris du temps depuis que notre juridiction a été élargie. Ça a été difficile de combler tous les postes. Donc, nous travaillons à agrandir notre équipe, mais nous avons des ressources adéquates pour faire le boulot.
Plus de juridictions, mais moins de plaintes. Comment est-ce que vous expliquez ça? Vous dites que c'est assez positif dans votre rapport. Est-ce que c'est vraiment positif? Les gens peut-être se plaignent moins, mais ils ont quand même des problèmes, là?
Je fais toujours attention à interpréter le nombre de plaintes, parce que, comme vous avez constaté, une réduction dans le nombre de plaintes n'est pas nécessairement des bonnes nouvelles. Ça peut refléter un manque de confiance, effectivement. Donc, nous étudions plus en profondeur ce qui est derrière les plaintes. Donc, je pense qu'il y a quelques années où les plaintes ont vraiment augmenté parce qu'on avait jurisdiction sur Hydro One. Donc, ça a tout changé, les calculs. Et depuis ce temps-là, les choses se sont stabilisées. Je pense que dans plusieurs domaines, comme les municipalités, nous avons réussi à éduquer, à former les gens. Les conseils municipaux maintenant ajustent de différentes façons et les gens ne se sont pas nécessaires de faire des plaintes en vertu de la loi sur les réunions à huis clos. Donc je pense que ça augure très bien. Et puis avec l'élargissement de notre juridiction, nous allons offrir plus de bénéfices à plus de citoyens.
Are there any areas, organizations, or agencies that you think the ombudsman's should extend their jurisdiction or oversight into?
Not really. I think that I think that we cover pretty much the entire public sector in Ontario. We've gone from 500 public sector bodies to almost 1,000 with the inclusion of the municipalities, school boards, and universities. And what I think this report shows is that we're pretty effective in driving positive change and bringing value to people. And it's not just the impact. I think we're relatively efficient in doing it as well. I mean, 49% of the cases are resolved within 1 week, 63% within 2 weeks. So I think things are going relatively well, but as I just said in French, we're really working hard to get to our full complement of staff because since our jurisdiction was expanded, we've been struggling to hire all the people that we need, but we have very high standards and we're going to maintain those standards.
Where do you see the intersection points with your report and the things you're highlighting with the new progressive conservative government coming in?
Well, as I said, I think that I heard all parties in the election campaign promoting transparency, accountability, and fairness, and that's what we're here to provide. And that's how we enhance government. So, as I said, we work more directly with the administrative branch. We work at the bureaucracy, but obviously there are cues to be taken and some decisions to be made by elected officials. So I look forward to meeting all the new players. I look forward to meeting the new premier, the party leaders, to explain the value of our office and the way that we work with all stakeholders.
Well, I think you're doing that now, but what are the cues specifically?
Oh, what do you mean by cues?
Well, you just used that word. You said there are cues to be made.
Well, I think cues to be made, messages to be sent, I guess. And
So specifically, which ones are you thinking of?
well, that we add value to the people in the institutions of Ontario, and it's in an impartial way, and it's done impartially, and I think there's a lot of education, especially in the municipal field. I think that, we have a good track record and we've got good understanding within the provincial government, but at the municipal level, I think there's still some trepidation and a bit of misunderstanding about what our role is. And so any change of government, whether it's at the municipal or the provincial level, I think is an opportunity for us to reach out to the new players and make sure they understand what our role is and what it isn't, and the ways that we can assist in serving citizens of Ontario.
You mentioned legislation over the past year on correctional reform and police oversight, but both of those bills, I think, have largely yet to be declared in effect, in force. To what extent are you concerned that that process is going to drag on?
Well, that remains to be seen. I think that I'm hopeful that the momentum will be maintained. These are reforms, legislative reforms that were decades in the making. This is what the people of Ontario wanted and called for a long time. And so I'm here and to offer help to the incoming government to implement those recommendations and provide any feedback that we can on facilitating the implementation of that. So we'll see how it goes.
Also, forgive my ignorance, but are hospitals under your purview?
No.
Should they be?
There is a patient ombudsman for the LHINs, that local networks are under our jurisdiction, so they coordinate the services. But for the direct patient experience, there is a patient ombudsman. I think the post is now vacant, but I think that's where complaints about the direct patient experience go for the time being.
So should they be under your office?
I don't, that's a policy decision. That's up for the government to decide. I just think that if there is a patient ombudsman, that they should take steps to fill that position as soon as possible. And, I hope they find somebody as passionate and committed to good service and health care as Ms. Elliott was, because I knew that she took the position to heart and she was quite passionate about it. So I think it's an opportunity to have somebody in place that can do a lot of good.
M. Dubé, un peu plus tôt, vous parliez des nouveaux joueurs qui viennent d'entrer sur la scène politique provinciale. Ce sont les députés ou ce sont aussi leur entourage?
Tout le monde. Je pense que il y a des nouveaux députés, il y a des gens qui les soutiennent, qui ne sont pas nécessairement au courant de la façon dont les officiers de l'Assemblée législative fonctionnent. Donc, c'est une opportunité pour nous d'offrir une formation, une orientation, si vous voulez. Et je peux vous dire que nous les officiers de l'Assemblée législative, nous sommes en communication pour coordonner un genre de formation ou orientation pour aider les gens à faire la transition.
Est-ce que les plaintes concernent principalement les francophones? Y a-t-il des enjeux qui touchent principalement les francophones dans votre rapport?
Je pense que dans le domaine d'éducation, les services en français, c'est un enjeu dont on entend parler souvent. Mais c'est les mêmes, principalement, c'est les mêmes à travers la province.
Il y a eu une petite augmentation des plaintes contre les conseils scolaires francophones. Est-ce que vous savez pourquoi?
Non. J'ai pas avec 1000 organismes du secteur public, j'ai pas tous les détails en tête, malheureusement.
L'Université d'Ottawa fait part de 20 plaintes. Est-ce qu'il y a des plaintes reliées à ces services aux francophones?
Ça non plus, je n'ai pas les détails à portée de la main. Tout ce que je peux vous dire, c'est que nous travaillons très étroitement avec l'Ombudsman de l'Université d'Ottawa, comme tous les autres ombudsmen au niveau universitaire. Et je pense que nous avons une assez bonne collaboration et nous avons réussi à résoudre la majorité des plaintes.
Est-ce que vous avez une rencontre prévue avec le prochain premier ministre?
J'ai offert à tous les chefs de tous les partis politiques de les rencontrer et de les expliquer mon rôle. Je l'ai fait quand j'ai été nommé et j'offre de le faire encore et j'attends une réponse. Mais j'ai très hâte de les rencontrer et de les expliquer de la façon que nous travaillons et d'offrir une collaboration. Vous savez, le rôle qu'on fait augmente ce que les députés font. Et les députés aident les citoyens de nombreuses façons, mais ils sont limités en ressources et en connaissances aussi. Donc, c'est une valeur ajoutée qu'on offre, si vous voulez. All right.
Juste en terminant, vous dites que vous avez plusieurs postes à combler, mais on est maintenant dans un gel d'embauche. Est-ce que ça touche votre bureau aussi?
Ça n'a pas été directement envoyé aux officiers de l'Assemblée législative. Évidemment, nous allons nous aligner avec la fonction publique, mais jusqu'à date, non, nous continuons à embaucher les gens dont on a besoin pour servir les gens d'Ontario. Merci.
You spend a lot of time, defending the Ombudsman office, that sort of thing, saying that you're not worried about the incoming government, but Mr. Ford has talked a lot about trying to find efficiencies within his government. Do you think he'll be able to find any in your department?
You know, we are prudent stewards of public funds, and we're always looking for ways to, keep our costs as lean and as necessary as possible. So I'm not really worried about that. That's an exercise that's ongoing in our office anyway. So, the only reason I mention that, it's not a fear. It's just that, as I've said a couple of times here this morning, new governments, whether at the provincial level or at the municipal level, a lot of new people are coming in, and so this is an opportunity for us to explain how we operate, what we can do, the value that we can add, because not everybody understands it. We're not top of mind for all citizens, and so demonstrating the value is important for us to do at all times. We're in constant outreach mode because, as I used to say as a lawyer, rights don't do you much good if you don't know about them. So the benefit that we can offer to Ontarians, we're always working hard to make sure that they know we're there.
And sometimes efficiencies, though, translate into cuts.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned in the report here that lack of resources was sometimes an issue that contributed to the problems and the complaints, the reason for the complaints. So is that a matter of concern, potential cuts?
Well, sometimes, yes. Sometimes when there are cuts, services are affected. I mean, that's a logical fact. So we'll see. But we'll see what happens, and we're always there to promote solutions. There are different ways of doing things. So if there are ways to keep service at the appropriate levels, then we're going to make that pitch.
Où est-ce qu'il manque principalement de ressources, justement? Vous disiez notamment les services à l'enfance. Je pense qu'il y a des besoins qui sont criants là.
J'ai dit ça comme commentaire général. Je disais aucun ministère en particulier. Tout ce que j'ai dit, c'est que souvent, quand on reçoit des plaintes contre un organisme public, c'est plus souvent une question des règlements ou des politiques que des fonctionnaires qui veulent mal faire. Et parfois, il s'agit d'un manque de ressources où les gens sont débordés, trop taxés, n'ont pas les moyens de combler tous les besoins des citoyens. Et quand c'est le cas, nous le constatons et nous faisons des recommandations. Mais je n'ai pas d'exemple en particulier.
Parce que dans le rapport, on parle notamment des enfants en difficulté. On dit qu'il manque de ressources pour les enfants en difficulté en Ontario. Ça serait un secteur où s'il y avait des coupes, ils paieraient encore plus le prix probablement.
Ouais. Ben, depuis notre rapport, on a eu un engagement d'ajouter 1,8 milliard de dollars à ces services-là. Donc, je pense que l'appel a été répondu, puis il reste à savoir si le momentum va continuer. All right, well, I want to thank you for your attention. Merci beaucoup tout le monde, puis bon été. Merci.